She waited until midnight to tear down my fence. By sunrise, she was standing on my property with a smile. She thought she had erased one fence. Instead, she had destroyed the single piece of evidence protecting her HOA from a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. If you love HOA stories, HOA revenge, and unbelievable courtroom twists, subscribe now because today's story proves that one reckless decision can cost millions. For nearly 30 years, the cedar fence surrounding my ranch had never moved an inch. It marked the exact property line my grandfather and the county had agreed on decades earlier. Every survey, every deed, every tax record matched that fence. So when I stepped outside one Tuesday morning, it was gone. Nothing remained except broken posts scattered across my pasture and fresh bulldozer tracks leading toward Cedar Ridge Estate. I froze. Then I saw Karen Whitmore. The HOA president stood beside a construction crew, holding a clipboard like she'd just won a championship. She smiled as I approached. That fence violated our community expansion plan. I stared at her. You demolished private property overnight? She confidently handed me an HOA notice claiming the land now belonged to the association. The paperwork looked official. Even the contractors believed they had legal authorization. But something wasn't right. Hidden beneath one of the shattered fence posts, I noticed an old brass survey marker my grandfather once told me never to disturb. Karen hadn't just removed my fence. She had accidentally uncovered something buried for decades, and when the county surveyor arrived later that afternoon, his face turned completely pale. Karen believed the broken fence proved the land belonged to the HOA. She didn't realize the ground beneath that fence would prove exactly the opposite. The county surveyor climbed out of his truck carrying old maps, GPS equipment, and a weathered leather case. He knelt beside the exposed brass marker. Using a soft brush, he carefully cleared decades of dirt from its surface. A faded county seal slowly appeared. Then he looked at me. Has anyone moved this marker since it was installed? Never, I replied. Karen crossed her
The red
arms.
line indicates
It's
the
just an
official
old
property
piece of
boundary
metal.
based on
The
our
surveyor
survey.
shook his head.
This coincides
No, ma'am.
exactly with the
This
monument found at
legally
this
controls
location.
the boundary. Silence filled the field. He compared the marker's coordinates with official county records stored on his tablet. Every number matched. Exactly. That meant the fence Karen had demolished had stood entirely on my property, not the HOA's. Karen's smile disappeared. She immediately insisted the HOA's recent survey showed something different. The surveyor calmly responded, "Modern surveys cannot ignore original recorded monument markers." Within hours, the county requested copies of every document the HOA had relied upon. Meanwhile, my attorney, Rebecca Collins, hired a property damage expert to inspect the destroyed fence. His report revealed something none of us expected. The fence itself wasn't the biggest financial loss. Hidden inside the destroyed boundary was infrastructure worth millions. And once engineers finished their inspection, Karen's biggest mistake was only beginning to reveal itself. Karen thought this was just about a fence. She had no idea what that fence had been protecting for decades. The engineer's report arrived 48 hours later. Rebecca Collins placed the thick binder on the conference table. "This changes everything." Inside were detailed photographs, utility maps, and certified engineering record. The old cedar fence hadn't simply marked a property line. It protected a recorded utility corridor containing a high-capacity underground water main serving several commercial farms, along with a fiber-optic communications easement leased to a regional provider. When Karen ordered heavy equipment to remove the fence overnight, contractors crossed directly over the protected corridor without proper authorization. Inspection crews documented crushed protective barriers, damaged access points, and violations of multiple recorded easement agreements. Karen's attorney immediately argued the contractors had relied on the HOA's survey. Rebecca calmly slid another document across the table. The original easement had been recorded nearly 30 years earlier. Every title search should have revealed it. The room fell silent. The contractors exchanged uneasy glances. Karen slowly realized this was no longer just an HOA dispute. Representatives from the utility companies requested copies of every construction permit. County officials opened a formal review of the unauthorized work. Then Rebecca received a call from one of the utility providers. After calculating restoration costs, service protection requirements, contractual penalties, and documented property losses, their legal team estimated the combined financial exposure could exceed $4.8 million. Karen looked at the report in disbelief. But the biggest surprise was still waiting inside the courtroom. Karen thought the $4.8 million estimate was only a negotiating tactic. Then the courtroom doors opened. Representatives from the utility companies walked in carrying boxes of evidence. The hearing began with the HOA insisting the demolition had been authorized by its updated property survey. Karen sat confidently beside her attorney. She still believed the responsibility belonged to the contractors. Rebecca Collins stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to call the county surveyor." Large aerial photographs appeared on the courtroom screen. The original brass monument marker. The recorded easement. The utility corridor. Every boundary matched the original county record. Then the first utility representative testified. The protected corridor was clearly recorded decades before the HOA approved this project. Next came the engineering expert. He explained that crossing the corridor without proper authorization required inspections, restoration work, protective upgrades, and contractual compensation under existing easement agreements. The judge listened carefully. Karen's attorney argued the HOA had relied on a modern survey prepared by a third party. The judge looked directly at him. Did the association verify the original county monument before approving demolition? The courtroom became silent. Karen slowly answered, "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded. So the decision to remove the fence was made without confirming the controlling boundary. He reviewed the evidence one final time before speaking again. The court finds that the HOA authorized work affecting property and recorded easements without completing the required verification. Karen lowered her head. But the judge wasn't finished. He reached for the final order. And what he read next would permanently change Cedar Ridge HOA. Karen believed the final order would reduce the damages. Instead, the judge explained exactly why every decision the HOA made had multiplied the consequences. Judge Harrison adjusted his glasses and looked across the silent courtroom. The evidence is clear. The HOA authorized demolition on private property without confirming the controlling boundary, the recorded easements, or the required approvals. He paused before continuing. As a result, multiple parties suffered documented financial losses. Rebecca Collins presented verified invoices from the property restoration contractor, engineering consultants, utility providers, and legal experts. Every amount had been independently reviewed. The judge approved compensation for the documented property damage, restoration work, professional fees, and contractual losses supported by the evidence. The combined court-approved judgment totaled $4.8 million. Karen closed her eyes. Several HOA board members looked down at the table. The judge wasn't finished. Cedar Ridge HOA shall immediately restore the property boundary, remove all unauthorized improvements, and adopt new procedures requiring independent legal review and certified boundary verification before approving any work affecting neighboring land. No one objected. Weeks later, a new cedar fence stood exactly where the original monument marker had always placed the boundary. The brass survey marker remained protected beneath a clear inspection cover. At the HOA's next annual meeting, homeowners elected an entirely new board. As I walked the restored fence line at sunset, I thought about my grandfather's advice. Never judge a fence by the wood. It's what's beneath it that protects everything. Karen thought she had torn down an old fence. Instead, She uncovered the truth that cost the HOA $4.8 million.